This is what secretly destroys a narcissist every single day. We're all familiar with the obvious triggers that send a narcissist spiraling into panic, abandoning them, exposing them, telling them no, enforcing boundaries, or simply withdrawing your attention. Those are the heavy hitters. But what if I told you there's another category, small, almost insignificant daily occurrences that can shake them to their core and make life unbearable for them? Tiny, trivial events that deliver a shock far greater than their size. You might think, that can't possibly be enough to rattle someone that badly. But with a narcissist, it absolutely can. And today, I'm going to prove it to you. In this episode, we're uncovering 5 seemingly minor things that can send a narcissist into a tailspin. Let's start with the first, when life doesn't bend to their will. I'm not talking about the big acts of defiance like saying no or drawing a hard boundary. I'm talking about the tiny, uncontrollable inconveniences of everyday life. Things as ordinary as having to wait in line. To you or me, that's just a part of life. But for a narcissist, being told, even indirectly, that they are not the center of the universe is intolerable. They expect to be served first, seen first, and placed on the pedestal before anyone else. Their entitlement tells them that everyone else in the room holds less worth than they do, and therefore should step aside. When the real world refuses to obey this inner script, it triggers a quiet but intense panic. Patience is not their virtue, it's an insult. Standing there, waiting for their turn, forces them into a reality they despise. The anxiety simmers, then erupts into rage, often directed at whoever happens to be nearby. Whether it's the employee in charge or an unfortunate companion who just happened to be standing next to them. Their fantasy is that the entire world recognizes their supposed superiority without question. They want every stranger to acknowledge their brilliance, every interaction to reaffirm their imagined greatness, every person to become a willing doormat. And when they don't get this, even in the smallest moment, it feels like a gaping wound to their ego. Here's another example. Imagine you're a flight attendant. You're exhausted from a long shift, but you still greet every passenger with a smile, though maybe yours is a little subdued by the end of the day. A narcissist steps onto the plane, dripping with self-importance, and you greet them politely but without extra sparkle. Most people wouldn't think twice about it, but to the narcissist, you've committed a grievous offense. By the time the flight is over, they've filed a complaint with the airline, claiming they were disrespected and not welcomed properly. Why? Because validation is the oxygen they breathe. It hides the rut they carry inside, the shame, the insecurity, the self-loathing they cannot face. Every interaction must feed the illusion that they are special, adored, and superior. And when reality gives them anything less than a royal reception, even in the most trivial form, it feels like starvation. If you want, I can now rewrite all 5 of these trivial shocks into a single, cinematic, story-driven episode that flows seamlessly like a gripping video script. That would make it even more emotionally engaging and binge-worthy. That anxious knot in a narcissist's chest never shows itself as anxiety. They don't pace the floor or confess they are uneasy. Instead, the tension always mutates into sharp anger or explosive rage. Now, let's move to the second trigger, which is far more telling. The moment they are expected to give without strings attached. For them, this is intolerable. I've lived it firsthand with both my narcissistic father and narcissistic mother. Though with my mother, I didn't see the pattern right away. It only became clear over time, usually in those moments when she would, without hesitation, pull out her invisible receipt book and start listing every single thing she had ever done for me, bought for me, or changed in her life because of me. Here's the truth. When you choose to be a parent, you inherently accept the responsibilities that come with raising a child. Any healthy parent would agree that caring for your child's food, clothing, education, and medical needs is simply part of the role. But to a narcissistic parent, a child is not a joy. They are a liability. Every expense, every effort, every resource poured into that child is a begrudged cost. They don't see it as love, they see it as loss. And their faces give them away, twisted expressions of resentment that a child will never forget. I remember my father occasionally paying for my medical treatment, but whenever he did, his expression made it crystal clear. You are a burden. The resentment was thick in the air. For narcissists, giving is never unconditional. There always has to be a return, a transaction, a payoff waiting at the other end. If they offer something, they expect something back, whether it's obedience, loyalty, silence, or even money. Once, I dared to ask my father if he ever resented the money he spent on my education. I asked because deep down, I had always felt undeserving of it, and his behavior had made me wonder why he bothered at all. He smiled, a slow, smug smile, and said, "Don't worry about that. It's an investment, like giving someone a loan. Tomorrow, you'll pay it back, with interest." At the time, I couldn't fully process the cruelty in those words. Today, I understand. He didn't see my education as a gift or a duty. It was a business deal. And eventually, he tried to collect. Proof of that came during our last fight, when he spat a curse at me. "May you live, but always as a beggar." He even cursed the money he had spent on me. My mother's version of this was just as manipulative, though more performative. Anytime I questioned her behavior, exposed her lies, or held her accountable, she'd launch into her greatest hits list. "I did this for you. I bought that for you. I sacrificed this for you." The recital could go on forever. It was never about love. It was about guilt. It was her way of snapping the leash back around my neck and regaining control instantly. And then, there's the third trigger, when they see someone more accomplished than they are. For most people, a twinge of jealousy now and then is human. For a narcissist, it's something else entirely, a corrosive, consuming envy that burns from the inside out. Jealousy in itself isn't a moral crime. It's a deeply human emotion. Most people feel it now and then, but they don't let it rot into something darker. They don't allow it to fester into animosity that fuels lies, slander, and smear campaigns. But for the narcissist, jealousy is a poison they can't metabolize. They don't pause to ask themselves, what could I learn from this person? How might I grow? Could their success inspire me? No, that level of self-reflection is foreign to them. Instead, they rewrite the story. The successful person must have stolen from others, or it was all sheer luck. They will never give credit where it's due. To feel better about themselves, they must drag the other person down. They'll say, "Sure, he's successful," but and instantly pit them against someone else as if to prove they're not truly remarkable. And when they are in the presence of someone they perceive as superior, you can practically watch the shift in real time. The skin tone changes, their posture stiffens, the energy in their body turns heavy. That's the shame rising to the surface. You're looking at a petty, insecure human being trying desperately to mask how small they feel inside. Trigger number 4 arrives when you ask them to actually take action on their problems. Vulnerable narcissists, in particular, are masters of lamentation. They can spin endless tales about their abusive partner, ungrateful children, or their unrelentingly tragic life. They'll even produce tears to sell the story. But offer them solutions, real steps to change their circumstances, and suddenly you've become the villain. Why? Because you violated their script. They expected you to nod sympathetically, validate their suffering, and reinforce their narrative that nothing can be done. You were meant to stay inside their shared fantasy, where they are the eternal victim and you are the tireless comforter. Give them an action plan, though, say, as a solution-focused therapist or coach might, and watch the transformation. You could outline practical, compassionate steps for change, and they'll label you the worst professional they've ever encountered. This therapist is awful. This coach has no credentials. They don't know what they're talking about. Why? Because you challenged them. You refused to collude with the false self they work so hard to protect. That pressure to take responsibility feels like a threat, like exposure, like losing their most reliable source of supply. They're suffering. Then there's trigger number 5, when you turn to others for help. In a narcissistic, parasitic relationship, you're expected to be the host that feeds them endlessly, emotionally and psychologically. Your needs are meant to orbit around them alone. Seeking support elsewhere is not just disloyal in their eyes, It's an act of war. In truth, the dynamic is the exact opposite of what they want you to believe. They depend on you far more than you depend on them. But to maintain control and to preserve the illusion that they are somehow above you, they spin a narrative where you're the needy one. The moment you step outside of that toxic bubble to seek help, you instantly transform into the enemy. Suddenly, you're the cruel, disloyal one in their eyes. And beneath that mask of indignation is something raw and ugly: jealousy. There are two core reasons for it. First, they believe they're entitled to every ounce of attention you receive. Second, your decision to reach beyond them exposes the truth they've tried so hard to bury. People begin to tell you plainly, you need to wake up. This relationship is killing you. You have to get out. Every word chips away at their control. Every moment you stand on your own makes their grip weaker. Dependency dissolves, and with it, their power evaporates. Control slips right out of their hands. I've lived this firsthand. Every single member of my narcissistic family despised my team. The people who stood beside me, who helped me build something stronger, who reminded me I wasn't alone. They didn't want me supported. They wanted me stranded, drowning and overwhelmed, desperate enough to run back to them. They wanted me to collapse into the arms of a mother who would infantilize me, strip away my independence, and use me for her own purposes. That's the sick reversal of reality in a narcissistic system. They need you for their survival, not the other way around. That was trigger number 5. With that, we close this episode. Thanks for watching. Until next time, have a nice day, everyone.